We deserve respect!
Ted, shut up.
Fine.
Ted 2 isn't just the funniest sequel ever made, it's hands down Seth MacFarlane's best work. Hollywood loves pumping out sequels, but let's be honest, most of them are just lazy cash grabs, and they almost always just end up sucking. But not only did Ted 2 not fall flat, it straight up outshined the original. And I'm gonna break down exactly what makes Ted 2 the perfect sequel, including one final reason that not only separates Ted 2 from every comedy sequel, but virtually every sequel of any genre ever made. What's something you just never see with the sequel? It being funnier than the original, and you get just that with Ted 2. The movie is completely self-aware. It knows exactly what it is, and instead of getting cute, it defines itself as a hard comedy, and it squeezes out every ounce of possible humor it can get. It's very lowbrow, self-aware humor, and that's exactly what we need in this movie. That's exactly what draws us to Seth MacFarlane cartoons and movies. But what makes it so much funnier than the original? Any Seth MacFarlane project is going to be heavily reliant on both gags and callbacks, as I'm sure you know with Family Guy. And this movie just has some of the best I've ever seen. We have the recurring Google search, "Did you mean black cocks?" running gag. Something that starts off as kind of funny and just gets progressively funnier and funnier and well placed throughout the movie. And we have the callback from the original Ted that gets carried over into Ted 2 with the dynamic between Ted and his boss.
I f***ed her with a parsnip last week.
I'm promoting you.
You got a lot of problems, don't you?
And to my all-time favorite gag/callback of all time, with the hard candies not supposed to be out.
Are those hard candies like just to take?
Those aren't supposed to be out.
Are those Tootsie Rolls just like to take?
Those aren't supposed to be out.
The first time it happens, I was just laughing so hard. And then it happens again, and it's just such a perfect moment because it's like one of the most serious moments in the movie. Such an amazing gag, but just such perfect timing to call it back. But what do you actually need to make sure that these gags and callbacks work and aren't just sorry attempts at comedy? You of course have the killer on-screen chemistry between Mark Wahlberg and the CGI-generated Ted, played by Seth MacFarlane. And then we add in Amanda Seyfried, who plays Samantha Jackson in this movie. And just this overall commitment between everyone is really what makes this movie what it is. It's funny, you're plugging in Amanda and Mark, who have done some very serious dramatic work and done such a great job in doing so in the likes of Les Mis, Fear, and The Departed, to name a few. You get these strong comedic situations, and everyone is just so fully bought in. That's one of the secrets to getting a strong comedic performance on screen, to have the actors treat the scenes like this is a dramatic sequence, because the comedy comes from general oblivion and just not actually thinking what is going on screen is funny. And this is a sizzling hot take, but I would honestly say that this is both Amanda Seyfried and Mark Wahlberg's best work. But actors alone can only do so much. What if I told you the creative genius behind all of this happened to be the funniest person in the world? And by all accounts, I would rank Seth MacFarlane the funniest person in the world. I think there is serious competition between the likes of Dave Chappelle and Todd Phillips, but by all accounts, pound for pound, I just find Seth MacFarlane to be the funniest person on the planet. And in this movie, you're also getting his funniest material ever. I compare this movie to just being like 1 2-hour long Family Guy episode. Seth really brought his A+ game and saved all of his best material for this movie. He definitely crafted each scene with very special care. And what do you get when you pair up a comedic genius writer and director with comedic geniuses in the cast? You get a scenario in which every set piece lands, and boy does this movie have some of the funniest set pieces I've ever seen. We've got the sperm bank, the courtroom drama, and then of course we've got my favorite of all time in when they smoke for the first time and they go to the library. That was just so funny. I remember watching that the first time in theaters, just laughing so hard. I forgot that scene happened, and I remember watching this the second time. I laughed so hard that I honestly thought I was going to injure myself. And of course, you've also got probably the most iconic scene in the movie, which is the set piece of when Liam Neeson comes to the supermarket and buys the tricks. And I'd be curious, do you have a favorite set piece from this movie? Do you find the library scene to be as funny as I do? Let me know in the comments below. But what's a great way to completely take you out of the movie and kill the movie watching experience for you? That would be a bunch of misplaced bad cameos. And thankfully Ted 2 does not fall victim to that, because this movie has pretty close to 1 million cameos, and I don't even think that's much of an exaggeration. We have the aforementioned Liam Neeson, and then we also have David Hasselhoff, Patrick Stewart, the Allstate guy, Flash Gordon, Tom Brady, who was at the peak of his NFL career at the time, and somehow they got Morgan fucking Freeman to do this movie. I have no idea how they convinced him to be in a movie like this, but I sure am glad they did. None of these cameos feel misplaced, and the acting in each of them is phenomenal, like even by Tom Brady, who's not an actor. And I think of the scene with the Allstate guy. His scene when he's playing the doctor is so funny. It's one of my favorite individual scenes in the movie. And what's something else that you never seem to get with sequels? That's a movie that remains familiar while still making it fresh. If you loved the original Ted, you'll also love the sequel. You'll love it even more. It brings back everything we love from the original Ted movie, with the dynamic between Ted and Johnny, and just the overall style of humor from the movie, while introducing us to new characters, situations, and a new central dramatic problem in the fight to get Ted's citizenship. And how often does a sequel feel horrendously paced? I can't tell you how many sequels I watch, comedy or even a different genre, in which I'm watching and, we get to the midpoint, sometimes even earlier, and I'm just asking myself, like, why was this movie even made? But this movie has the perfect pacing. The movie's very much a fast watch. We're generally flying from scene to scene, and when the movie does slow down, it's for a well-timed set piece. Purely from a structural standpoint, this movie's actually extremely intelligently written. And can you think of any sequels that you'll just rewatch on a whim without rewatching the original first? I mean, there are 0 comedy sequels that I will just watch as standalone films. I mean, I absolutely adore the American Pie series and the Hangover trilogy. Every single year, I watch American Pie, American Pie 2, American Wedding, and American Reunion. But I'll never just say, hey, what am I going to turn on today? I'll turn on American Reunion. But I will definitely do that with Ted 2. I've watched Ted 2 at least 10 times, and I think I've only watched the original twice. And honestly, I could only think of one other example outside of the comedy movie genre where I will do this, and that's Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. And honestly, if your only company is The Dark Knight, you're in pretty damn good company. And what is the last thing that sets Ted 2 apart from all the comedy sequels and virtually every other sequel, regardless of genre? Well, virtually every sequel goes wrong in one of 2 directions. It either tries to create a carbon copy of the first movie and just fails to bring any originality whatsoever, or 2, it goes completely in the opposite direction and tries to get too original and tries to just straight up reinvent the wheel. And Ted 2 does neither. It pulls the absolute best from the original in the comedic genius of Seth MacFarlane and the characters that we all love and their relationships, while also leaving the worst to die in the over-reliance on bathroom humor. For a guy so brilliant and such a funny writer and director, it really just feels like wasted space when he brings that sort of humor into the equation, and Ted 2, for the most part, just completely rids itself of any of this. And of course, we also introduce Amanda Seyfried's character and Samantha L. Jackson. She's just such a marvelous addition to this movie. That's just another example of just something or someone new into the equation without trying to completely reinvent the wheel and bringing them in for the better. And that's how you actually show growth and progress and just make a better overall movie between the original and the sequel. And if you love Ted 2, chances are you also love Dude, Where's My Car, as it's full of the same exact sort of stoner humor that Ted 2 is. And I break down exactly what makes this the perfect stoner comedy here.